everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be painting underwater Necrons. I started out by priming the model, again off camera. I'm sorry, I'll remember next time. But I also decided to try wet blending for the very first time with a metallic and brown. Not my brightest move. Now, two very important things that I learned when you're trying to do this. One is that you have to let the coats that you apply dry completely before you try to apply a coat on top of that. With colors like brown, I found out, if you try to apply the next coat too soon, you will scrape away the paint on top, but the paint underneath leaves kind of a coffee stain area, which is not at all what I was going for. Basically what I did here was pick the spots near the joints and toward the bottom of the armor that I wanted to appear rusty, and I applied a brown paint right on the edge of those areas right there, and then I would go just above that quickly because this paint dries way faster than it needs to and it's infuriating. But anyway, I digress. Way above that, where you want it to be straight metallic, apply the lead belcher and slowly work down towards the middle. And when those two paints make contact, clean your brush off and just use it as basically just a blending tool. And just keep going over that area, brushing in one direction, and you'll slowly incorporate those colors together with a nice creamy blend. Now at this point you're undoubtedly wondering, but Jake, why not just apply a color like Balthazar Gold, which already looks like brownish rust? I don't have an answer for that. Time to start working on those metallics with the color that we should have probably started blending with from the beginning. I don't know why my first choice was to try to blend lead belcher and brown. Don't recommend. But yeah, so we're gonna paint the shoulder blades and the head a nice, you know, rusty metallic color. They've been under the water for a few million years. Now at this point I'm taking a look at this model, and the right side looks wonderfully aged and it just has a lot more going on than just the gray arm on the left. So I decided to hit the little forearm armor plate with some Balthazar Gold as well. Now with the ceramite white, I just am going back in and plucking those eyes, just because I kind of went over them with the base coat of the Balthazar Gold, and I'm also going to highlight inside the rib cages so that the glow effect really comes through over the white. We're just going to, reapply the makeup. I'd like to see your mascara last after 60 million years in the ocean. Time to break out the Abaddon Black, or Abaddon, or Adabada Yabadabad Abaddon, doesn't matter. Break out the Abaddon Black and start base coating the gun, and anything else that is going to be black, which is just the gun. Just base coat the gun. Remember to leave the orbs inside the barrel white, and I specifically chose to leave a significant portion of the gun around the barrel white, because when we come over that with the Tesseract glow, it is going to create a glowing effect, and it's gonna look really good. And it doesn't really matter if you get some black in there, or if you think that you left too much white around the orbs, because it's just gonna help sell the effect. It's fine. Just be sure that any major mistakes you're going to go over with the white. And also remember not to paint the axe on the bottom of the gun, because that is also glowy green. And speaking of the glowy bits, it is time to apply your Tesseract glow. Straight out of the pot. It is perfectly thin, and you just apply it over the areas that you painted white. Don't worry about any overspill onto the metallics, it's just going to help sell the glow. Alright, with your known oil, you're going to be targeting all of the recesses and edges where the panels meet. Also anything like the divots in the back of the spine, to really make those pop and separate it from just looking like one straight sheet of metal. And while we watch me expertly do that from an angle that we cannot see, why don't we spend some time in the lore? The Necrons, as we know them, started out very differently. Once the Necron tier, they started the war in heaven with the Old Ones over the pursuit of eternal life. Life as a Necron pretty much sucked. Their life expectancy was very short, and their sun itself was poisoning them. After a long drawn-out war, which they were losing badly, they allied themselves with the Satan, who promised to not only help them in their war against the Old Ones, but to grant them the eternal life they so desired. There's a lot to go into with the Satan, and this is just a very dirty overview, and the Old Ones as well. But as far as the Satan go, think big, star-eating gods without form and unmeasurable power. That's a Satan. Got it? Alright, moving on. So, they were essentially tricked, and led into giant furnaces, essentially, and their bodies were transformed and their souls devoured, leaving them as the Necrons that we know today. Now, why underwater Necron? Well, I wanted to do something new. I have seen some amazing models of Necron from ice worlds and from lava worlds, and they look so good, but I have never seen one from an underwater world. And I was picturing in my head kind of that scene from Pirates of the Caribbean where the skeletons walk under the boat and they're just dragging bits of core or kelp with them, and they just look amazing. And I'm wondering what it would look like to be a scuba diver in the water and in the distance start to see this emanating green neon glow, and then just slowly this horde of Necrons marching single file in perfect unison over the coral, smashing plant life and rock and just clouds of sand just spreading behind them as they march forward, all the while never stopping, slowing, marching right over the reefs and the plant life, everything scattering before them, and it seems amazing. So that is the story behind my Necron. Okay, grab your moot green and grab a soft but firm dry brush, appropriate for the size of the area you're working on. Or I guess it doesn't matter since mine is freaking huge. Anyway, I wanted to up the glowing effect just a little bit, so I took some moot green and just kind of dry brushed the gun itself and then a couple areas around where the glow would be happening. Alright, now we're going to take some purple and go ahead and paint in the little octopus tentacle that our friend is probably going to step on when he steps off that rock. You know, technically, this was from a Death Guard chest plate, so does this count as my first ever kit bash as well? Good lord. Okay, and now I took some moot green and just laid down a very, very wet base paint on the seaweed strands that I made. And the reason that I watered it down so much is because they were made out of very thin cardboard, and the more you get it wet, the more it kind of warps and has a not so fabricated look to it. And that's what I wanted to happen. I wanted them to start curling around and kind of becoming misshapen. And then you just slowly add lighter and lighter green tones. Alright, at this point, we're going to begin working on the rock that the Necron is standing on. We're going to grab some Abaddon Black and water it down almost in a 2-to-1 ratio, where it's water, 2 parts water, 1 part Abaddon Black, to essentially just turning it into a wash. And at this point, you could pose the question, why not just use Nuln Oil? And I would not have an answer to that question. grab a bit of wraith bone and the enormous dry brushing brush that I use, and I'm just gonna go over the rock and the sand around the rock, grabbing some of the texture and really bringing back the fact that it looks kind of like an undersea rock that is partially covered in sand. Alright, now it's time to take some mossy bits and super glue those to your base to make it look like he is walking through a coral reef. And I also kept some round pieces to wrap around parts of his body like he walked through them indiscriminately and they're just stuck to him, but he doesn't even notice. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Drop a like, and remember, if you want to start painting minis, the first step is just to get some paint on your brush.